All right, welcome team. Great to have you here again for our live broadcast every second week. Today we're going to try our best to give you something to think about. We've all been chasing headlong into this new approach to work, which is primarily hybrid working or entirely working from home or working remotely. And so whilst that's been happening, in parallel, there's been a few challenges that are coming up that I want to stretch us to think about. Have we really given enough thought to those challenges? Now, what I'm talking about is some of the dangers that may be lurking behind the scenes as a result of us happily moving to a work from home environment. And as you can see by the title, are we heading to a return of the sweatshop days? Now, if you know what the sweatshop days were, this is going way back, maybe, gosh, 100 and almost 200 years, actually. I think 1830 to 1850s is when the original concept was first brandied about the garment environment where people, textile industry, lots of people working in very poor conditions, and it was labeled the sweatshop era, if you like. So I'm not predicting or projecting or suggesting even that we're going back to that environment, but looking more at where are we today with everyone heading back home. And, in the last 100 years, there's been a lot of progress towards let's say, the standard of working conditions that we've all started to enjoy, particularly those white collar office workers. Of course, if you're blue collar and you're working in the field, in a factory, on the job site somewhere, not so applicable. But for the white collar workers, maybe we've been a bit softened, and maybe we've become a bit spoiled, you may say. Now, whether that's through the union movements, whether that's through common sense and making our work environment something that we can enjoy more as we try and create more employee enjoyment in the work that they're doing. The workplace itself hasn't stood idle, and we've moved towards, let's say, a reasonably high standard of environmental conditions. So as we work through our conversation today, I really want to start to stretch you with your thinking. But before we do that, let's just do a little bit of a promotional recap, because next week is when we fire up our Facilitation Mastery Virtual Mastermind. Now, the 25th, I think, is Tuesday next week. So here we are on Thursday. What's the date? 21st. So we've literally got 4 days before we start this virtual mastermind called Facilitation Mastery. You've heard me talk a lot about it. We've been promoting it heavily for the last couple of months. We've been working through our freebies. We've been giving you emails for those on our email list. We've been writing newsletters. We've been putting it on LinkedIn. So hopefully you've seen the message. You can see the link on the screen if you would like to learn more about it. That will give you an opportunity to learn more about it. And if you choose to, you can register. But as it says, today is the last day. So after today, we're going to close the registration, because tomorrow we have our first virtual check-in call with the 3 different groups that we're running 3 programs for this mastermind. So we're doing one at evening time across 4 days. We're doing one with 2 sessions over 2 days, so 4 sessions, 2 each day. And then we're doing one day, 4-session block, 8 a.m. through to 6 p.m. On one day on the 28th. So you can either join the one that's of an evening from the 25th through the 28th. You can do the 2-day one, which is 2 sessions each day on the 25th and 26th, or you can do the 1-day suicidal program where we'll start at 8 a.m. and we'll finish 6 p.m. Choice is yours, but we want to give as much coverage and much opportunity for a vast range of people as we could, and that's the reason that we've done what we are doing with these 3 programs. Now, as I mentioned, only here today, you will still have the opportunity to access our free 3-video ebook combo, because we're not promoting this anymore, and this is just a private promotion. So if you're watching this, you'll have the opportunity to actually go to that link you can see on the screen and still access that mini series that is like a primer or a prelude to the mastermind itself. So if you're interested in the mastermind, I would certainly recommend jumping on board, grab this free mini series. It's not going to hurt you to have it. It doesn't cost you anything, so why not grab it? But you can only get it today because this isn't being promoted anymore anyway. So there you have it. So what does it look like if you sign up for this mastermind, this virtual mastermind? It's loaded with product, might be the best way of putting it. Excuse me. So we have our mastermind.com platform for those people that join as a VIP, only for those people, because they pay for that entitlement to become a VIP. And on the mastermind.com platform for this program, you'll see we have some 24 sessions that we cover as a part of this program. So you can see you also get a whole raft of other material that goes with it. So there it is. There's the last time we'll be promoting it. It closes, registrations close today. So if you are interested, jump on board quickly. This is the platform you can see here, the mastermind.com platform. You can see that we have 3 modules, etc., and you get to work through that if you're a VIP. Okay, so enough of that. What's coming up following that is in October, we have our next challenge. So this is our ultimate 4-day challenge. So if you recall, each year we have a quarterly challenge. And this is the quarterly challenge for the last quarter of the year. We started our first challenge in January. That was a 5-day challenge working on maximizing your stakeholder value. We then in April did the storytelling challenge. Then in whenever it was, August, we did the facilitation mastery challenge. And now in October, we've got coming up the situational fluency challenge, which is really about becoming a better sales professional. It's really introducing you to the ways of becoming more skilled with your clients and being able to put yourself in their shoes, understand their business, understand their company, understand their industry, and as a result, become a much better salesperson, as well as build deeper, stronger relationships with your customers who then want to do business with you because you can understand their business, you can understand their pain, you can understand the challenges they're facing, and therefore they don't see you just as a pushy salesperson, they see you as a genuine business partner that has an interest in the struggles that they're going through, and you're coming up with their input to achieve the solutions that they agree on. So really important. Again, we have a freebie we'll be offering as well as this 4-day challenge. This is one that I get really motivated about because I love the topic of sales and improving people's ability to do this, which is something we all do, but to do it better. And connecting with your clients and really strengthening those relationships makes such a difference. So a little bit of a precursor to what's coming up in October. Don't forget, last day to register for the Facilitation Mastery Virtual Mastermind starts next week. After that, we'll be promoting the 4-day challenge coming up in October. So hopefully that gives you a quick insight to where we're heading. All right, now for the main event today. The good old sweatshop is now being replaced by today's modern version of the sweatshop. Now, this is almost a self-inflicted pain that I want to tease you about to get you thinking, are we really creating this potential that we haven't given enough thought to at this stage? So really, when you start to think about the conditions that we've now left in the workplace, in our office, that we have tweaked and improved and evolved with over the last several decades, or maybe even half century, to get it to the standard where it is now. The lighting conditions, the environmental surrounding, the noise, the ergonomics, the duration that we work, the breaks that we have, the exercise that we can expose ourselves to. Just a few of the things that I want to tease you about that we may have left behind after all that hard work to get in place. And now, for the benefit or the luxury of not having to travel and being able to work from home, being able to have that extra freedom, being able to work in a coffee shop, perhaps, what are we sacrificing? What are some of the things that we may not have considered at this point? That's really what I want to tease out. I'm going to show you a few pictures here just to start to tweak your thinking in this regard. So what can you see in this picture that should be ringing the alarm bells? What can you see in this picture? And what about this picture? So I don't think any of us are naive enough to say, oh yeah, but these are not real cases. These are the reality of how many of us are spending our hours in the name of the freedom of working from home, with the poor lighting, with the bad posture and the ergonomics, working from a sofa, bending over, looking at a small screen, laptop typically. There's so many challenges that in the short term probably have no major effect. But what about the longer term? What about as we get into 3, 5, 10 years from now and we've been working this way? What's the consequences that we're not thinking about? So hopefully just this discussion alone is going to prompt you to step back, look at your environment that you're in today, if you're working from home, and compare that to the environment you had working in the office. Maybe it's similar. Congratulations if it is. But I'm going to guess that there's many things that we've all of a sudden happily sacrificed for the benefits of that extra freedom. But we know already that so many people are struggling with isolation and loneliness. We know that so many people are struggling with anxiety, with stresses and burnout from fatigue. And yet there's likely to be many studies in the future that identify that people working from home are working much longer hours. People working from home are working in much worse conditions. People working from home are really isolated. And it's still early days. So when did this really gear up, ramp up? Well, thanks to the pandemic. In 2020, the transition that was occurring for people working remotely, working from home at a steady transitional rate was ramped up, okay? And all of a sudden, it became the norm. Now, will it stay there? Who knows? I'm not the fortune teller. But I just want to raise the questions that those that do remain working from home, let's start to consider the consequences today. And really, the question is, are we ready for those consequences? So before we can answer that, we need to identify specifically what type of consequences may we be talking about. We'll just have a look at this picture. And I'm pausing to let you take it all in because there's so many elements that are built into this one picture here. So I want to pose the question, what are some of the potential dangers of working from home? We know that people are saying that they're starting earlier, finishing later. Now, I can imagine, in fact, I know that many people have actually taken additional jobs. So not only are they working longer hours on one job, but now they're cramming in additional work into that period. This is going to cause problems with their sleep. This is going to cause problems with their coping mechanisms, their mental stresses. If you looked at that picture that we just showed, you see the bottle on the table. How many of us are easily falling prey? Maybe it's too much caffeine intake. Maybe there's alcohol. Maybe there's other substances, whether they're prescription drugs, whether they're whatever, right? That now all of a sudden we have access to in the privacy of our home that wasn't the case before. And unless you're about to turn up in front of somebody in a meeting, who is going to know? Who will see those telltale signs? Are we expecting our leaders to have that ability to be able to identify virtually the telltale signs? Gosh, if so, I think we're thinking a lot of our people and their ability to be able to see this. How often are we having meetings where we don't even see the people 90% of the time? We might see them to wave and say hello, and then they switch off their camera and collapse from exhaustion while they're still connected and hope that their boss doesn't call on them to answer a question. There's so many potential hidden dangers that we're not exposed to or not perhaps considering at this stage. Now, again, I always generalize. There's going to be the outliers. There's going to be the companies that are really on top of this. There's going to be those individuals working from home that are really conscious and cognizant of these challenges. But for the general masses, I can imagine how easy it is to allow these traps, these pitfalls to occur. Let's have a look at what else may be hidden there. What about the noise that we're suddenly faced with? Perhaps we're working from home and we have young children. Perhaps we're working in the evenings and the family is home, the TV is on, and we're trying to concentrate. We're trying to participate in our many, many evening conference calls because we're working so globally now as a world humanity, or early morning calls. The alternative, the opposite end of that scale, the deadly silence. There's a lot of studies that show the challenges that silence triggers as much as excess noise. One is more mental, one can damage the ears, it can create distraction. What about some of the things that we may not have even thought about? What about the ergonomics, the eye strain, the posture? What about trip hazards? What happens if somebody gets injured when working from home? Do we have cases yet? Do we have lawsuits? Do we have compensation claims for injuries where there's no witness? For people that are working from home and cut their finger, that suddenly can't hear properly, that are struggling with depleted eyesight, maybe RSI. The list, as it says, can be quite endless. And so today I'm really wanting to challenge you and get you thinking about, I'm a person working at home, have I allowed my standards that I enjoyed in the office before this new phenomena, have I allowed those standards to slip for the sake of the comfort and the freedom, the flexibility that I get by working remotely? So if we continue on with our conversation, what about from a company perspective? So what can we do? Are we doing? Should we do? So if I look at my own career, it was heavily influenced by the companies and their focus on safety and on health and the training we received to ensure that we worked in an environment where we didn't do injury to ourselves. We didn't cause harm to others. How are we policing that now as a company with our employees, with our staff that we spent so much effort and time with when they were under our care, now that they've opted to work from home or to work from a coffee shop or to work remotely or to work in a different country or a different city perhaps? How are we taking responsibility? How are we preparing? How are we supporting? And I believe that just because somebody is working from home doesn't remove our responsibility as company leaders to suddenly pass the onus entirely back onto our people. And so, what are we doing? What can we do? Well, here's a few areas that I'm sure many leaders have thought about, but have we done anything to enforce, to implement, to instigate these changes that are needed for those people? So in many ways, we now have two universes. We now have a parallel existence as a company. We have people working in our environment, in our office, in our work facilities. And then we have those people that are now isolated and remote. So what have we done with our policies, our procedures? What have we done with our training? What have we done to bring in some sort of mechanism to help those people prepare and make it sustainable? Now, here's another challenge I want to throw out. What have we done to help the leaders of those people be able to cope with this new world? To help them identify the things that may be needed by them to support their new environment? Of course, the obvious answer is we want them to have more connection. We want them to have more calls. But is that really addressing the issue? Based on everything we said, if I'm a smart staff member, I'm going to point my camera with a nice little section at the back of me to make sure that everything looks good. I'll brush my hair, I'll do my close up, just to make sure that my persona, the image that I portray to my bosses, doesn't give away the reality. And I'm sure we've all seen the cartoons, the images where on the top half or in the section here, like in the cartoon shows, what the leader, what the person on the other end of the screen can see is just a facade for what's really happening in the background. Yeah. So when we talk about training, yes, absolutely, it's necessary. When we talk about coaching, absolutely, I would encourage all companies to consider the use of internal and external coaching to help both the leaders as well as those working remote. Why? Because we don't know what the real implications, the ramifications, the future consequences of this sudden shift in dynamics to this new world, work from home, work remotely, hybrid environment. right? Now, I'm not saying it's all bad, and I'm not suggesting that we need to go back to the way it was. I'm suggesting that we, as responsible employers, need to be more cognizant of some of the things that we may not be giving due consideration to. And therefore, I would challenge you, for any of you that are leaders listening to this broadcast, I would challenge you, what have you done so far to ensure that those items that I've addressed here today are actually not occurring with your people? And how can you do that? Yeah. So, as I said at the very beginning, this is all about provocation. That's a better word. Thought provocation, or thought provoking you as leaders to give due consideration to what needs to be done. Do we already have policies and requirements from a H&S or a health and safety perspective? Occupational health and safety. Well, people working from home still are in that occupation. They still need health, they still need safety considerations. They just don't work under your constant scrutiny anymore. HR, what are you doing to ensure that your people management policies are catering for those people no longer in the office? Learning professionals, do we have the right blend of material that staff working from home, that leaders that are leading people working from home can learn from, to ensure that they know how to support, to ensure that they know what is right and what should be done, what should be avoided? What else can you do in addition to policies and procedures and training? Coaching, of course, mentoring, of course. Things like the buddy system may be effective in some applications where different staff members team up with each other remotely so that they can check in on each other. You have to get creative. You have to get innovative to find the right answer to these questions that I really want people to start thinking about. It will only take the first law case for this whole dynamic to start to change. Perhaps unravel, perhaps not. But as good corporate citizens, and many companies today are looking at their GSC, what the acronym is now, but their governance and their sustainability and the environment and the rating that they can achieve. Are we tying that rating to how we're dealing with people working from home? If not, why not? And if you're listening to this and you're thinking, Wayne, time that you go back to work, perhaps it is. But at the end of the day, I also feel I have an obligation to ask these questions, to challenge colleagues, to challenge other leaders, to challenge company CEOs, to say, hey, have you parked your responsibility at the door just because the environment has changed? Or are you actively pursuing what you believe to be right as a corporate citizen of the world? So, team, I could get on my soapbox for much longer. I'm going to park it at that. Here's 5 areas that coaching for companies is working to support other leaders, other companies. Obviously, staff engagement is a big challenge with this remote work. So we work with the staff, we work with the leaders to look at ways that we can sustain and improve that engagement. Performance, I think we haven't really understood the consequences at this moment and the potential drop off and the impact to performance that may be around the corner. We're all on this high thinking about how performance has improved as a result of this remote work, but the consequences are being ignored. And so we work with people to help them identify, to help realize, is it really performance that is improving, or is it the sacrifices you're making, the longer hours you're committing, the additional stress and burden you're undertaking that's creating on the surface what looks to be performance improvement. And then, of course, we have the coaching, whether it's one-on-one or team coaching, as well as the training. And as I said, it's not just training for, excuse me, for the remote workers. It's also training for the leaders. The leaders now have an exponentially harder task to be able to understand if their people are struggling. And therefore, please, if you're listening to this, consider how can you help your leaders to help their people? How can you be a better corporate citizen to make sure that it doesn't just all implode one night or one day unexpectedly? All right, team. Well, I've had my little rant. I've been on my soapbox for long enough. Keep watching. You can see us on social media. You can join us on our website. You can download plenty of articles. You can listen to our videos and read our ebooks. You can attend our webinars. There's countless ways you can engage with us. Please do. We would love to hear from you. A final reminder, perhaps, about the virtual mastermind that starts next Tuesday, and registrations close today. So for the very last time you will see this promotion this year, you will not see this link anywhere in the future. Grab it now while you can. With that, we will say coaching for companies, that's what we're all about. We're here to improve employee, staff performance for organizations. How do we do that? We do that through development and coaching. Of course, it helps the individual and it helps the organization. So with that, Team ET, thank you very much. It's been great. Hope you've enjoyed this little rant from Wayne, and I look forward to catching up with you in a couple of weeks, a new topic on the ET Project Live. Until then, bye for now.
So what are you waiting for? Hit the subscribe button below and click on the bell icon so I can pop up in your feed occasionally with a great tip for your ultimate growth.